Hi, my name is Gloria Bramlett, and it is, for those that don't know me, probably most people watching this already know me, um, but it is April 23rd, 2022, and I'm doing this part of the video now, and I'm going to do a second part later this week, and hopefully be able to put them together, because I'm not exactly tech savvy, so we'll find out. Anyway, I wanted to do something different this year for Mother's Day. Besides just getting my mom a gift. My mom she's 81 right now. She'll be 82 this Christmas. My dad will be 88 or 89. I keep getting that mixed up. Around the same time, the same month. They both have birthdays in December. But I wanted to tell a little bit of my mother's story. I think that her grandkids and great grandkids that are here now, that are alive now, don't know a whole lot about her. They know some about her, but not everything, especially her great grandkids. And I think that future generations, you know, 6, 7 generations, I would love for this video to last that long so people would actually know her and know a little bit about her. This is going to be extremely casual. She has a pretty remarkable story, so I wanted to share that. And you can see my French Bulldog is wanting to get in the picture that's by you. I'm going to scoot this, like I said, informal. I'm going to scoot this a little bit closer and see if I can talk to you a little bit better this way. There we go. Okay, so I wanted to tell a little bit about her story because she was born extremely poor in a rural part of Louisiana. I don't think that her and her siblings knew they were poor. They had everything they ever needed as far as food. There was always food on the table. They always had clothes to wear, even if they were hand-me-downs. They didn't realize that there was anything else. Christmas consisted of stockings with fruit or nuts, if they were lucky. But they farmed. My granddaddy farmed. I remember my granddaddy, my mother's daddy. He died probably mid-60s, late 60s probably, because I was born in 63. So he was a big, jolly man that laughed a lot and was fun to be around. I don't know if he was that way with them when they were growing up, but as my granddad, he was one of my favorite people. So he lived with us for a while after his wife passed away. There's just a remarkable story even there between he and his wife, who were married, you know, for a long, long, long period of time, and until she passed away. She was an orphan herself, and was raised by 2 ladies that I later met. One of the people that raised her in a nursing home and didn't even know it was the same person. So there's a whole nother story there that another video another time. This one's about my mother and how remarkable of a life that she's led. She, like I stated, she grew up in rural Louisiana, very poor. All of her siblings, though, and she have been extremely successful. And that's pretty amazing. And she has a lot of siblings. So she herself got married at age 17, had me at age 18. And I had my sister at age 18 and had me at age 22. She worked the entire time, from the time that she was 17 and she got married until she retired, and she's continuing to work now at the same exact place that she began working when she got married, which is pretty remarkable in itself. She's probably the longest standing person ever to have worked at one place this long a period of time. But during that time, women didn't move up in the workplace that easy, especially women with families. It's hard now for women to move up, but then it was extremely difficult. We're talking about late 50s and 60s, 70s. So I find her journey just remarkable, how she raised 2 children. She started out as a teller at the bank. She got an education. She moved up to the loan department, moved up to vice president eventually. This all took a long period of time, and for a male it probably wouldn't have taken that long, especially a white male wouldn't have taken that long. But she moved up to vice president, she trained three men um, to be president after that as vice president that came in new. And she was perfectly qualified to do that position very successfully at that time already. But she tried three men. She held no resentment. She's great friends with all three of the men. One of them I know is still alive, and they actually go and appraise houses still for the bank. So anyway, she became president eventually, though. And as president, she served in that capacity very successfully for a long period of time, and then now is on the board of directors. As soon as she retired in her 60s, she became on the board of directors. She jumped on that and is still doing that at age 81 and very active doing it. She also is a community leader. She leads all kinds of groups. When she was working, she was, I believe, president of the National Banking, Women's Banking Association. She's the national group. She currently is in the Joy Club and all kinds of church activities and arranges church trips. She's trying to slow down some. I don't think she's doing a lot of slowing down though. She loves to travel. She loves to get out and do things. Just extremely active and can outpace me, especially with something like shopping, which will wear me out with one store. And she can go to, what it seems like 50 stores in one afternoon. So anyway, she still loves that. She loves to travel, go to different states, go to different places. We got a trip planned this next fall to just travel up to Tennessee and that area. So I just wanted to tell her story. I think it's remarkable that she was president of a bank, had a career her whole life as an adult, and raised two children. And not only raised us, but was a beautiful, caring, and loving mother. Um, she taught us the value of work. She taught my sister and I that a woman could do anything. And I think that was an extremely valuable lesson, not only for my sister, who's very successful, but for me. I think it was a life lesson, and that I think a lot of men do not get. So I'm very, very proud of my mother and what she accomplished in her life and has accomplished in her life and is still accomplishing in her life. And she does it all with such grace and such a loving attitude. If you meet her, you'll never forget her. She's just one of those people that you'll connect with immediately. She'll give you a hug. She'll smile. You'll be friends. That's just the way she is. And she doesn't care where you came from, what background you have, how poor or wealthy you are. As a banker, when she was president, and I remember going up after school, and sometimes they would drop me off at the bank from the school bus, and I would go up there and sit in the break room usually. But I remember her, going up there, and a lot of people that were very poor, not much money at all, would come to the bank, but they knew my mother, and they would ask for her by name. They would ask the teller, "Could I see Gloria Bramlett?" And she would sit and go over and help them balance their checkbook. That's how caring she was as a president of a bank. Doing that is pretty remarkable. Her dad, my dad and her split duties at home. My dad cleaned up, my mother cooked, he cleaned up the kitchen. As far as house duties, cleaning house, my sister and I had our chores. And then mother would do half and daddy would do half. And it was always that way. He did take care of the yard mostly, but she got out and did a lot too. And housework was split pretty evenly, I think. That's the best of my memory. I can remember dad vacuuming and sweeping and doing all those things. So I think that was pretty advanced of him as well, especially for that time. And my life has been, I was born in 63. I'm now 59. Well, I'm 58. I'll be 59 in a couple of months. But I think that people my age did not experience that. It wasn't a common experience anyway, for their mothers to be so successful in business. And I know women still struggle today to have to balance that, especially with children. And if you're a single mother, I just, my heart goes out to you because I don't know how you would do it. But even two parents, it's extremely difficult. And my mother was able to get some help. She had to when I was young. So somebody stayed with me between, when I was really young, they would take care of me during the day when she was at work. And then after 3 o'clock in the afternoon to 5 o'clock, when I was pretty young and going to school, there would be somebody waiting for me at the house until I got to a certain age. Around 12 years old, I was pretty much doing it myself, and my sister's 4 years older than me, so she was there as well. So it worked out well as we got older, but when we were younger, she had to have help come in. There was no other choice, and there was not a lot of child care available that she trusted anyway. Although we did have play school and things like that when we were small. Miss Bobby's was her name, I remember, which was a great experience. Anyway, I wanted to do this very informally. I'm starting this interview at my house. I'm going to Louisiana later this week. And on Friday of this week, I hope to be interviewing her. I think that's the 28th, 2022. And I will start talking to her, and I want to talk to her about her childhood. Lots of stories about her childhood, growing up, how she met my dad, how she managed her career and her family, and just everything that she's accomplished. And I hope she shares some stories about when they were growing up. I would love to interview her brothers and sisters too. Many of them are still living, and I would love to hear them tell some of their stories because I've heard quite a few of them tell their stories. I'm realizing that it's pretty dark back here, isn't it? Anyway, it'll be lighter at Mother's house. So I'll interview her in Louisiana at her home because I've got to go over there anyway. So I just thought this would be a neat thing to do, and I hope it stays alive. And who knows in 50 years what type of media we will have and how you will listen to things. But I'm hoping this stays in some format, so family members 5 or 6 generations down the road can know her story because she was a trailblazer and is still a trailblazer. So I'll just say that before I see my mom later this week, I love you, Mom. And I'm so glad that we're doing this, and this will just be like a casual conversation between us, and I'll ask you a few questions and hope that you tell the same stories that I've heard before and maybe some new ones. So anyway, that's it for today, and I will pick this up at my mother's house in Louisiana later this week. Thanks. Bye. And I'm doing this by myself, so I'm hitting the button myself. All right, so this is April 29th on Friday of 2022, and this is with my mom, Gloria Bramlett. And so finally, I'm here at home and having a chance to do this. And this is going to be extremely casual. I don't have anything written down. It's just going to be a conversation, but I wanted to ask her some questions and let her tell a little bit about her growing up and her career and what she does now. So this is kind of starting us out, and at any moment, there's a possibility that my dad could come in and you'll hear a loud voice because he cannot hear and he doesn't understand what we're doing. So just know that interruption might take place. So anyway, okay, Mom, let's start. I want to ask you questions, and I might speed up things just a little bit so it doesn't go into like hours of this, because I think I could talk to you for like 4 or 5 days straight on your life and growing up. But anyway, I would like you to start talking and say a little bit about your mom and dad and what they were like and the way their life was where you grew up.
Okay. Well, my mom and dad were so happy, and they made our lives so happy when I was growing up. And of course, there were 9 of us, and they lost a child when he was like 2 years old. And this was way before I was born. I was the next to last child.
Yeah.
I have a younger brother, Don. But
there were 2 sets of you, weren't there? Like
yes, like they had 5 boys first, and they were 2 of them were already grown and away from home when I was born. So, but they were wonderful brothers, and they took good care of us and Mama and Daddy. But it was always a fun place to be.
Right.
We had access to all the outside. We lived on a farm.
You didn't have much money, did you?
Oh no, we grew up during the Depression.
Yeah.
I was born in 1940, and my younger brother was born in 43. So we had a hard life, I guess you could say, but we didn't know it.
Right.
It was okay. We didn't have a lot. We had plenty to eat. We grew all of our groceries, and Daddy raised all kind of meat. We had pigs, and we had cows, and we had horses. We had everything, chickens that a farm could have. So that part of it, we didn't have a hard time, and we shared everything. All our neighbors shared whatever they grew. So lots of good times sharing with neighbors as we were growing up. So it was a lot of fun growing up with Mom and Dad. They were happy together, and they rolled off onto us kids.
You made yours?
And all of your sisters and brothers have kind of had that same positive outlook on life and are happy and successful.
Absolutely.
All of you have been successful, which is.
Right, exactly.
And my mom still has, and that's my dad on the side. He's sitting on the other couch in the love seat. All of her brothers and sisters have been successful, and most of them are still alive. Some of the older ones have passed away. Two of them, I believe. Two brothers have passed away that were from the age group when my mother was growing up. They were already out of the house. But it ranges in age. My oldest uncle, your brother, is Uncle Sidney, who is now 98. And then
Can I open
Rudolph. I'll just like that.
these? You don't want the sun shining in.
So that's my dad, and like I said, he may say a few things. But anyway,
This is Elvis right here.
This is
He's
my mom's
part of
cat.
our life right now. He's our everything. We just love him, and he's 20 years old.
20 years old, so he has that longevity of life like my mother's family. There's something that happens when you are around my mother's family, I think, that make you live a long time.
My two older brothers lived to be 93.
I'll rest my head.
Both of
then.
them.
Yeah.
And then my next brother is 98, and then my next brother is 94.
And the 94-year-old just drove up from Baton Rouge to Arcadia, which is where my parents live out in the country, in Arcadia, Louisiana. It's about a 4-hour drive, and he's in his 90s and still driving and doing great. And even the 98-year-old, like Sydney, is still doing wonderful too. And still is able to tell stories and tell us all about childhood, which there are a lot of stories about them growing up, but we won't get into all that because I know the time is short. Well, tell us a little bit about when you met Daddy. How did you meet Daddy?
Oh, well, let's see.
Gloria,
I was...
can I open them so the sun can, man? You don't want to open them?
No, not now. Well, I was in high school, and he was back from service. He had been in the Korean War, and I was a senior in high school when I met him. One of my girlfriends introduced us. So he would come up to the school in the afternoon when we were practicing after school was out. And that's how I met him.
Well, Mother played basketball in school, which you don't find many women your age that had that opportunity to play basketball and sports, and much different than the game today, but it was still that you were able to play sports, which is really neat, and pretty progressive for the community to be able to offer that.
I lived in Bryceland, which is about 5 or 6 miles from Arcadia, so I had to ride the bus. So in the afternoons when we practiced basketball, a lot of times my basketball coach, Mr. Byers, would take me home from basketball practice, or I'd catch a ride some other way. So loved playing basketball. It was a big part of my life growing up.
And her and my dad are still married. Daddy's physically healthy. He came here and he forgets a lot now. So he really doesn't understand this process, but he's still physically very healthy. Gets out and works in the yard and does things. And I want to go back now because there's something that was fairly uncommon during that time is for you to start out not only with a career from the time that you were married and grew up working in the same place that she's now still on the board of trustees. You started when you were 18 or 17?
Yeah, I was 17. I graduated from high school when I was 17. And we had a good friend at Bryceland that was a vice president at First National Bank in Arcadia. And he got me a job, actually. And I started to work there in October, and I got married in December a couple of months later. And that was the beginning of my career there, and that was in 1958.
And you went from teller, and then it took a while, but not as long as it took most women to move up during that time. It was mostly white male dominated, but you went from teller to the loan department to vice president to executive vice president to president. How was it having a career during that time? And actually, I know you're friends with a lot of the presidents that were presidents during that time, but Mother was executive vice president for a while and trained a couple of presidents.
Right.
To come in and be president when she was very qualified herself. But that you're friends with them and you don't harbor any feelings about that. And I know that you're close and still work with one of them. But how was it having a career and balancing home life back then? I mean, because I know times have changed
I didn't
a lot.
realize it was difficult, but looking back, I could see that it was at times. But it was the big problem back then was finding someone to take care of my children. I was fortunate that I lived in a small town. And back then, our bank closed at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And a lot of times I was home by 3 o'clock by the time the children got out of school. And so I had to come home and clean house and wash clothes and take care of children, cook supper, and make sure homework got done. But it was okay. And it worked out fine. I had really good people to work for, and we were great friends, and they gave me lots of opportunities. The men that I worked for were all good Christian men, and they gave me every opportunity to succeed. Yes, it took a long time, but those were different times. And things have changed, and women now are able to move up faster in the business world than I was, but that was okay. I loved what I was doing, and actually I enjoyed having, I wasn't having as much pressure and stress because I had a job to do and I did it, and I didn't have to worry about other things. And then as my children left home, I was able to move up the ladder some, and they gave me great opportunities, and there was several, Homer Woodard was one of them that gave me the opportunity to be on the board of directors. And I think that happened in 1981. And he gave me that opportunity. And now his two sons are running the bank. Russell Woodard is the chairman of the board, and Brian Woodard is the president of what used to be First National Bank is now Louisiana National Bank. So the bank has always been a part of my life for the last 60 years.
Well, even longer when you think about it. From 17 to, and I'll tell your age, you'll
81.
be and you'll be 82 the next Christmas. So since she was 17 till then, it's 70 something years that you're almost so it's amazing that one place she was employed by the same employer all your life, and then is now still serves on the board of directors.
Right.
And she works with one of the other former presidents going out and appraising homes.
Yeah, he
which is
was
amazing.
he was a vice president
vice
at
president,
our
okay.
at our bank, and we do that for the sheriff's department here in Arcadia, and it's a fun thing, and we got to get reacquainted again after many years of both of us going different directions, and he's a good friend as well.
Yeah. I want to step back. Well, first of all, let's stay on this topic for a second. Like I said, it's unrehearsed, very casual.
Yeah.
But going back to, I believe that I remember you stating that at first, when you had kids, you had both me and my sister's 4 years older than me. So we were both at home, and after she had them and she went back to work, you had some guilt. You thought had a little guilt about leaving us at home and not being a stay-at-home mother like so many were at that time. And I want to tell my mother, which everybody that knows me knows this, that was the best example she possibly could have had for us, because I grew up with parents that were both working hard, and my mother was extremely successful, so I had that opportunity to see a very successful female in the workplace, which I don't think a lot of people my age, which I'm 58, in a few months I'm going to be 59 years old. I don't think many of us at my age had that opportunity to see, which is pretty amazing. I have friends that I know that had that same opportunity because they followed in mother's footsteps, and there are other women that were successful at the bank, and you fostered a lot of that. And at one point, National Women's Banking Association, you were president of that.
I was.
So there were, and mother is still very active. What all clubs are you in now, and including church things?
Okay, well, of course I'm very active in our First Baptist Church. I've taught a Sunday school class for probably 30 years, a couples class, and they grew old with me. But I love teaching that class, and they were all so precious to me, and still are, and some of my very best friends, and so I love that part. I used to do these things until the last year or so, when I've had to kind of step back from some of it for personal reasons. But we attend church every Sunday, and we're still able to do that, thank goodness. And so we love it. And my husband Alvin was on the board of deacons at First Baptist Church, and he's kind of a step back from that right now. But that's a big part of our life, rotates around the church. I worked with the Joy Club, which was our senior adult group, planned trips for them, and was president of that organization for a good many years. So
Still part of what, the book club?
I'm in the literature club, the PEO. So I belong to both of those outside of church life. So still do those things.
Yeah, I think it's amazing what you and Dad and the accomplishments that you made. And Daddy never harbored any feelings. There were some men during that time that wouldn't have been able to stand for their wife to be actually making more money than they made, and to be higher up in the organization than they were. I can remember a lot of sharing of duties between you and Daddy and us. We were expected to do our chores every day too.
Right.
But I remember Mother cooking and Daddy cleaning up after you cooked. And I remember on Saturday mornings, Daddy did do most of the outside work, but he would also help, because that's how he used to wake me up if I was sleeping too late. He would be sweeping the floors in the den, and he would just accidentally, on purpose, bump into my door with the broom and say very loudly, "He sure is sleeping late today." So that was a common part. But I remember going as a child up to the bank after work sometimes. They would drop me off. Even the bus would drop me off sometimes, and I'd be able to stay back in the kitchen area while Mother continued to work, and I knew all the employees of the bank, and they kind of raised me too. And, you know, that was when I was old enough to sit still in the back in the kitchen. But I also saw a lot of things. There were a lot of people with lower income, older, elderly people with lower income, And it didn't matter their race or where they were from, any of those things. Mother treated everyone the same, and it could be somebody that was in charge of cleaning up the bank or the floors or cleaning the church, or somebody that was a CEO of a large organization and business owners. So I grew up seeing that example, and I remember one time going in, and there was an older lady, a much older lady without much education that came in, and mother was at that time already, I think you were executive vice president at that time, and she just wanted help balancing her checkbook. And mother sat as executive vice president of a large bank, sat and helped her balance her checkbook. So that was a lot of people ask me why I'm a social worker. And and my mother was a business person. My dad was kind of political in the clerk of court's office and did law review newsletters and things like that. And I ended up being a social worker. And oddly enough, my sister, even though she didn't work in the field, ended up being in sociology. And I think that's because of the way we grew up and the accepting of other people no matter what, which is a Christian value that my mother holds dear to her heart. And I believe her parents did too.
Right.
I do want to step back. I want you to tell a funny story before we wind this up. I want you to tell one of the stories that you've told me about growing up. There's all kinds of stories. I've heard most of these from my uncles. There's one that mother has. My uncles have told a whole lot of them, and mother talks about they had an outhouse. They were poor in the country when she was little, and they had an outhouse, and she was always scared to go out to the outhouse in the night. I remember you telling me that. It was dark out there, and her brothers used to tell scary stories to make it even worse. There was one of the person that would jump out on the road that y'all come call something, or they tried to scare mother with this story. I forgot what that one was. And there's one of your aunt too. You're in the nightgown.
Oh.
Tell that story. That's a good one.
Well, that was about Aunt Nettie. My uncle, my mother's brother, Robbie, lived just wasn't even half a mile from us, and we walked up there a lot, and they would walk down to the house. Well, my uncle's sister-in-law lived with them, and she would come to our house sometime and spend the night with us when my uncle and them were away from home. And so one night she came and spent the night with us, and I had to sleep with her. And we slept in what we call Rudolph's room. Yeah. And it was a scary room to begin with. I was a scaredy cat growing up. And so during the night, she got up, and she had on this white outing gown, long sleeve. And she had, I suppose it was arthritis, and she was walking around moaning and rubbing her arms, and I thought it was a ghost. It scared me to death. So that's my scaredy cat tale.
Yes.
But my brothers have this story about a wild child.
That's what it was, the wild child. Yes.
Yeah, and that was actually when they were teenagers. And they tell about they would take a sweet gum tree and they would put something through it, and it would make a screeching sound like a child screaming or crying. Well, all of the folks around would think that they put out a tale that there was a wild child. Said some of them even boarded up their windows. So they were afraid the wild child was going to get them. They would slip out at night and go and make that thing cry like that. So fortunately, that wasn't during my time. It would probably scared me to death.
Yes.
So,
and my uncle still tell all these stories. In fact, she just got together with her brothers and sisters about a week or so ago, and here in Arcadia, and they all came over, and she was saying even the ones in their 90s are still telling these stories, and they're completely with it and able to remember all these things, which is amazing. But growing up, for myself, growing up around all those people, because we had a very large extended family on my mother and dad's side, and I grew up with everyone but your mother, who passed away while you were pregnant with me.
Right.
But all the other grandparents were there, and most of my great grandparents. So I grew up with all of that extended family in a pretty close radius, so we could see each other. so that was a very interesting to be able to do that. And like my great grandparents didn't pass away until I was in college. So that's pretty amazing. And your dad came and stayed with us when your mother passed away.
Right.
He would come up and stay.
Several days.
Yeah,
At a time.
and
Yeah.
served me my first coffee.
Yeah. He was bad about it. He would let Gary have coffee in the morning. Mostly milk against my best judgment, but he did it anyway. And so Gary would sit in his high chair and he would take his fist and bang on it and say, "I want my coffee." My daddy taught him that, of course.
And he was one of the jolliest, happiest people. And both sides of my family are both wonderful sides of family. I mean, they were all wonderful people. Mother's side was the more jovial, laughing out loud, social, all very, very social people. So her side had that. Daddy's side had a little more of that German touch to them, which was great growing up with that too. But didn't, they weren't as, and I don't want to say that, but I love them to death. So but they were just different. It was a very different type of family. And so I grew up with hearing my mother's laughter and my granddad's laughter and all of her brothers and sisters that would come visit. And on Christmas, we would get to see them all. So that was really neat.
Our house when I was growing up was this big old huge house, and it had a porch all the way around it. And Daddy would sit out on that porch a lot of times, even at night. And he would, if it was hot in the summertime, he would get up and go sit out on the porch. And I would slip out a lot of times and go sit in his lap. So those are some great memories. He would tell us stories about, he told us about the great men of old from the Bible. He'd tell us those stories while we sat in his lap and listened many times. Christmas was a big event in our house. We had wonderful times at Christmas.
Huge Christmases.
Yeah, we'd go and search for a big tree to set up and put the lights on it. We didn't have many presents. The big part of Christmas was our stockings. And our stockings wasn't a little homemade stocking. It was one of Mother's stockings that she wore, and it stretched. I mean, way out. And mostly it had fruit in it and candy and nuts. And we carried that stocking around for weeks after Christmas. It was there and anybody to touch it.
And Mother had the disadvantage too of her birthday being on Christmas Eve.
Yeah.
So it was all celebrated kind of as one, wasn't it?
Oh yeah, we didn't have birthday parties.
Yeah.
I don't remember ever having a birthday party, but that's okay. My daughter now makes sure I have a birthday party every year.
Exactly.
But that's okay. I did miss it because it wasn't a thing back then.
Yeah.
You know, it was okay. But it all revolved around Christmas at that time.
Yeah.
So it was. We were all happy. We didn't know that we didn't have what other people might have had. But most of the people that we associated with were in the same condition we were.
In fact, didn't your dad to even take what he grew, anything that was left over, he took to other people, didn't he?
We would have hog killing day at our house. I left home that day.
She's a little like me with that.
I'd go up to Uncle Robbie's somewhere where I wouldn't have to be associated with it. But all of our neighbors came and helped, and we'd share whatever.
Right.
And we had a smokehouse, and that's where he would smoke all of our meat that would last us all year. You know, it would be, it smelled wonderful in there.
Yeah.
It had meat hanging, so we'd have plenty. We had plenty to eat. Mother put up all kind of fruit and vegetables, canned in jars, you know, so.
Which you do now, a lot of.
Yeah,
the jellies
I love to
and
put up jelly
things like
and
that.
fruit, yeah, now.
Well, before we wind up, I want you to name out, because I'm hoping this is a video that'll be around for a while, that even, you know, me and my sister and us, that our children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren and great-great-great-grandchildren will be able to see this and know what it was like to have known my mom, which is an absolutely amazing person. So go ahead and name your children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren to give them a shout-out.
Okay.
the ones that are
Well,
living in.
well, my children, of course, is Gary, and my daughter is Debbie, and Gary and Billy are here today, and Billy and Gary have 3 children, Ben and Matthew and Nicholas, yeah. And so I don't get to see them as often as I would like to, but they all know me, and we are glad to have them in the family as well. And then Debbie and her husband Marty, they have 3 children, Laura and Kayla and Trey, and I have 3 great-grandchildren, and that is Laura has 2, and that's Haley and Adam, and then there's Kendall, which belongs to Kayla and Andrew, and wonderful family. I love them all. And on our 50th wedding anniversary, we took the whole family to Palm Springs for a vacation, and it was a beautiful place and a wonderful time together. Really had a good time doing that.
They all had these condos and went back and forth between the condos, and that was such a great trip.
I love my grandchildren, and almost as much as I love my children. They are really special to me, and I try to be a part of their life as well. So, but, of course, Gary's a little prejudiced about all of this, and he's always saying stuff about me that, but anyway.
And now it's all proven true because you've seen her being interviewed. She has an infectious laugh, an infectious smile, and everybody that comes into contact with my mother loves her, and she's never met a stranger, so if you see her, come up and meet her. And she's just a leader in the community, a leader with her career, a trailblazer with her career for women. And I think that I owe a lot of my personality to my mother, and a lot of my friends say that I laugh so easily. That's all mother and my granddad for her dad. And then I'm so lucky to have both of my parents still with us, both of them, and I'm gonna flash the camera around to my dad and to Billy sitting on the side in just a minute so they can say hello. So Mother, thank you so much for this. I'm hoping that this video lasts forever, and I'm hoping I'm actually recording. I think I am. But I'm gonna check that.
Let me say before he leaves that I'm very proud of my children, Gary and Debbie. They're very successful in their careers, both of them, and they have built beautiful lives, and I love them so much.
I love you, Mom.
Okay.
All right, let me see. Yes, we are recording, so that's the first good sign. And I'm going to flash it around and see. One second, I'm walking through Mother's living room. There is Billy, and there's my dad. Wave hello, Dad. Wave.
Wave.
You gotta wave.
Gotta wave.
Can you wave?
Wave at him.
Wave at him. Wave at the camera.
Okay, he's not going to understand that one. So thank you all so much, and it's great being home as always. And Mom, thank you so much again. All right, I'm cutting off. All right, so I am back home in Texas and wanted to, and back to Lafayette's very excited that I'm home. And the cats are all playing out here in the sunroom. Anyway, I wanted to go ahead and finish this up. So I could have talked about 300 or 400 other things with my mother, and I could do a whole video just on her brothers and sisters. In fact, I wanted to name her brothers and sisters. If I can talk over Lafayette, I can do this. So I think I'll go into the other room because he's very excited. You might rather hear him talk more than me, but anyway, I'm gonna go into here. I wanted to talk a little bit about our brothers and sisters, at least give them a shout out. First of all, her oldest brother Jimmy and her next brother CJ were older, and they have both passed away. Jimmy reminded me so much of my granddad. He's the one that looked the most like him, anyway. And then there is Uncle Sidney, who is the oldest now, and there's Uncle Rudolph, who lives in Baton Rouge, and then there's and my Aunt Martha Sue, extremely Southern name, Martha Sue, and Anna Laurie, who are both living in Monroe and West Monroe, Louisiana. And then my Uncle Don, who lives right outside of where my parents live, in their country house in Arcadia, Louisiana. They're all still around and doing great, and I love them all, and they all have that same jovial attitude and smiling and laughing at so many different things. You can see I am so tired. Anyway, long drive. I wanted to say hello to all of them. I would love to get a video of all of them talking to each other and telling the stories. Like I said, I could do a million different videos just on subjects of Mother's career or clubs that she's in now, and what all she does for the community. She's a Heritage Award winner. She's got all these awards. She has a Gloria Bramlett Day in Louisiana. So there's all of these accolades that she's earned, and all the things that she does now that she's so active in, that I would love to talk about on another video at another time. But I want to thank everyone if you listen to this whole thing. And I'm going to try to get some rest now, but I'm hoping that Mother enjoys this and my whole family enjoys this, and being able to watch this and have memories of my mom for decades and decades to come. So anyway, I feel very lucky that I still have both my parents. So they're both doing wonderful, and it was great visiting with them this week. And a special happy Mother's Day to my mom. And maybe we'll make this an annual thing, and I'll get your brothers and sisters or your kids or grandkids to talk on some of them as well. So, love you, Mom, and thank you everybody for listening.